You have tuned into the BearDown Corner with your host, Sergeant Holio. Hey everybody, this is the BearDown Corner. I'm your host, Sergeant Holio. Let's get you caught up with some information this week. News and notes for after the Super Bowl. We have Raiders are hiring Seahawks quarterback coach Andrew Janocko as the new offensive coordinator for the Ravens. Now, Janocko and Kubiak have worked together on 3 previous stints, most recently obviously being Seattle. Previous to that, they worked in 2024 on the Saints staff when Kubiak was the offensive coordinator there. Janocko had the quarterback coach there as well, and then between 2019 and 2021, they were both on the offensive staff for the Vikings, where Janocko went on to hold multiple roles on the offense. So this guy knows his stuff. He should be enough viable, especially paired with a former guy who he's literally worked with his entire career pretty near. This could be good for the Raiders. They got the first overall pick. They can make some adjustments in the offseason. They could come back next year and maybe be competitive. All the hopes for that, for Max Crosby not getting traded, because if they do that, man, they might as well just hit reset on the entire goddamn thing. That is your defense right there. But the Raiders are hiring Andrew for their OC position. And in replacement of losing Clint Kubiak and his potential replacement, the Seahawks have hired former 49ers tight end coach Brian Fleury. So he has done most of his coaching with Kyle Shanahan on the 49ers staff. He's held multiple roles ever since he got picked up about 6 years ago. 46-year-old, you know, he's here to try and make a stamping in the coaching community. So your new offensive coordinator, Seahawks fans. Jaguars plan to use Travis Hunter more on defense than on offense this season. Reports coming out of Jacksonville is they want to use Travis Hunter more on defense this coming year. Now, whether this was the Jaguars' plan from the initial beginning, you know, year 1 he learns the offense, year 2 he learns the defense. Either way, if he's going to truly be the NFL's first 60-minute man since like 60 years ago, he has to know the entire playbook, I guess. So we'll see. We'll see if his superstar capability can be performed at the DB position this season. John Fox is being hired as Joe Brady's staff as a senior assistant coach. He has held a few of these roles in the past few years. The former NFL head coach of 17 NFL seasons, who had tours in Carolina, Denver, and of course Chicago for a little time brief, comes in to help guide the young 36-year-old. Really is what it is. It makes sense. They've retained at least 11 assistants off the old coaching staff. You bring in an old vet like John Fox. Honestly, Fox is there for Brady to pick the brains of when he's having troubles adjusting to his new role as head coach. That's what my guess would be. Yes, he's there to help them, but this is Joe Brady's show. He didn't can McDermott, who was a good coach, by the way, just to... If you're saying he's the problem, then it has to be Joe Brady at the helm. Simple as that. John Fox, great hiring, but you're not going to be... I like it. It helps nurture and mold Joe Brady into a head coach. Yes, every guy should be ready in his own way, but really, he kind of got tossed these reins, even though he would have been a hot candidate this offseason. The Bills are doing everything they can to surround themselves with the best possible scenario. So, I get it. Good hiring. Stephon Diggs pleads not guilty to assault charges from previous year. He is scheduled in court April 1st. This came from the allegations brought forth from, I believe, an ex-girlfriend or baby mama. Either way, they were arguing the one night. according to her, it was about money. He got violent and gave her the old rear naked choke. She couldn't breathe. No shit. But did this happen, or is it another case of a person going after a superstar in the NFL? Now, honestly, Diggs has a bit of a temper. I could see him getting a little handsy, maybe, but you know what, though? We don't know the whole story. It's her word versus his. So, we'll see. We will see. The NFL, in its own, has won the grievance they filed against the NFLPA. Why? For the NFL report cards that were being handed out via the NFLPA through their own way of reporting. Basically, they did league-wide surveys on all players, and then based on the NFL and the information they brought forth, the judge decided to grant them in favor of, because they found there was substantial evidence showing that the report cards were biased, basically. It's like the NFLPA would only pick the specific comments that they wanted to show and submit rather than all the good ones. So it's like they were trying to make certain teams out worse than they are, right? So if you have enough evidence for that, good for the NFL to stand up on that behalf on the owners for false accusations, really. But on the other flip side, the NFL isn't too happy with the recent ruling that another judge gave for the Brian Flores case. So if many of you didn't know, and this is how we're going to finish today off. Brian Flores, former head coach, Miami Dolphins, 2 head coaches ago now. He got fired for whatever reasonings. Now, that came out later. The reasons being, he alleged that Stephen Ross fired him for basically being racist, more or less. And it happens. It has been happening in the NFL for a long time. The judges ruled in favor that Flores can take this case to open court. So this isn't going to be settled through some NFL, grievance process or whatever the hell it was. That's what they wanted to happen. But the judge said, no, there's enough evidence on his side of the board with other plaintiffs like Steve Wilkes, former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. His case is that Arizona basically used him as a bridge coach until they hired their former head coach, Jonathan Gannon, that they fired this last offseason. Right? Like, he had one bad year, was tossed into the winds with a roster that, you make the best with what you got, but they didn't really do anything for him the year he became head coach. They kind of used that as a sit and reset year, is what they did. So you know what? That makes sense for his logic in that. Nathan Horton, former interim head coach of the Tennessee Titans, never got a fair shot at a head coaching interview, he said. It was like they just brought him in just so they could just have the Rooney Rule covered, right? And Flores obviously has enough evidence that the judge is willing to accept that, hey, you were wrongfully dismissed. Not because you had a losing record. Hell, he had 2 winning records in his previous couple seasons there. Now, playoffs weren't really around, obviously, but he was building something from nothing. When Flores took over that Miami team back in the day, they were at a nothing standstill, and they slowly built back up. And then you got to have a few good years with Mike McDaniels and his wonderful offense. But, the evidence is there. I say all the power to Flores. You hire someone based on their ability to do the job. That is it. Simple as that. But you know what, though? That's going to cut it for us here today at the BearDown Corner. I'm Sergeant Holio. You can catch the podcast every Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 6 o'clock General, everywhere you can see your podcast, listen to your podcast, and of course on YouTube. Be safe, take care, and we'll catch you next week here on the BearDown Corner.